Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We're very excited to have you this morning attending the 5th Enwealth conversation. My name is Bansi Kaleli. I'll be your moderator, and I'm joined by Wangeshi.
Hi, everybody.
Okay, so I think we just get started. I'd like Wangeshi to just give us an overview of the ground rules and what we expect in today's session.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Wangeshi Kanyeki. I'm a media practitioner and I'll be a co-host to Bansi. Karibuni sana to Enwealth Conversations. We're very excited that you're here. Thank you all the participants who have joined us. Today we'll be looking at the research findings for a survey on conflict resolution in retirement benefits. And you know that is a controversial topic and it attracts a lot of discussion. So today we'll be discussing that and also sharing some survey findings. And we have industry experts who will share their opinion from their area of specialization. And today we have, at the bottom of your screen, we have a Q&A and we also have a chat. I would like to request that you keep your mic on the mute so that we don't have feedback, and then we will have your questions posted on the Q&A. If you're having trouble maybe hearing or you want to give us feedback, please use the chat option. So kindly remember to post your questions on the Q&A so that we don't miss them. Sometimes the chats are too many and we could miss out on your question. And the chat is to just give us feedback or comments, or if you have any queries, you can use your chat option. So thank you very much, and I'll hand over to Bansi.
Thank you, Wangeshi. So to get started, I want us to run a quick poll question. So if you can look on your screen, I'll share briefly the question. So please give us your honest answer. We won't be able to know who said what. So the question is, where do you experience conflict the most as an individual? Is it at work, home, on the road, traffic, or at the gym? I wish we had more options. Social gatherings with the 15 people around you. So where do you find that you experience most conflict? I'll give us 10 more seconds. Okay, the results are in and they should be on your screen. It looks like 76% of us experience most conflict at work, which is very interesting given that we spend most of our time and our days at work. So I think this conversation has come at the most appropriate time where we can look at some of the conflict we experience at work and even as we transition away from work when it comes to access to our retirement benefits. So I'd want to invite our Managing Director, Mr. Simon Wafubwa, to just come and give us his opening remarks. Simon, karibu.
Thank you so much, Bansi. A warm welcome to all the panelists. Special recognition from the Retirement Benefits Authority, and also Naomi Limo, together with Naomi May. We have two Naomis today. What a double blessing. And very happy to have you on this webinar, together with Elizabeth Irungu from the ICA Asset Management Team, and also Mr. Manga. My colleagues at Enwealth also appreciating and acknowledging our General Manager, Mr. George Oyuga, and Bansi, together with Opa from legal team. Looking forward to a very great, engaging conversation. Basically, Enwealth conversation is we call is a partnership between Strathmore University Institute of Human Resource Management with the aim of undertaking periodic industry research and analyzing the research findings that helps to shape policy, drive product innovation in response to the dynamics of the social security industry. This is pertinent because we do this in recognition that our industry is growing every day, and we have new landscape that we are playing in from the social perspective, from the economics perspective, from the technology perspective, even from the cultural perspective. And all these actually play out in the space of social security and our well-being when we get to retirement. And I think for us to remain adaptive and remain relevant and innovatively relevant, it requires of us to keep our ears on the ground. And so Enwealth Conversation seeks to bring out these issues, have a conversation with various stakeholders, and through which then we possibly shape policy and also drive product innovation. We are quite happy today. We are looking at conflict resolution. And this is an area, and just looking at the survey that Percy has just shared, you would notice that a lot of conflict arise out of work. They will play out even in employee relationships, employer relationship, employee benefits. And if they are also not well managed, you'll see them playing out in retirement. Just to give you a very interesting a perspective, at some point someone had retired, he was in procurement, and so he gets into retirement, he's asking the wife, where is the tender specifications that awarded this purchase of sugar? So the procurement skills are actually now playing out in the house and resulting into a conflict. So conflicts will always arise. I guess the issue is how do we solve them as long as people are relating and working together. And so this is the conversation today, and we are looking forward to a very engaging discussion, even as we unveil the results. Thank you all who participated by giving us feedback. Thank you all who participated in the survey. And we are very grateful to the regulator for always giving the support to the industry and even joining this webinar. God bless you all, and have a great engagement. Back to you, Bansi.
Thank you so much, Simon. And as you rightfully said, through the Enwealth conversation, we seek to have thought-provoking conversations on matters that affect us. Just to brief all the participants who've joined us today, this 5th edition comes on the background of 4 successful conversations that we've had before. When we had the first research project, we looked at trustee remuneration. So how much should trustees be paid, if they're going to be paid? Do they deserve to be paid? For how long do they deserve to be paid? Do they deserve to be paid for meetings, for retreats, etc.? So we had a report on that and had a very insightful conversation on that. I think this was in 2017. Then we looked at retirement confidence. How well are we prepared for retirement? And we came to the realization through this report that many people are saving, but they're not even checking their balances. Only 1 out of 7 of the people we interviewed was really well prepared for retirement. So now it raises questions on how do we ensure that all our members are prepared for that retirement journey when it comes. The 3rd edition, we looked at retirement well-being, a Kenyan perspective. So here we got to speak to the people who've already retired. So the questions you are asking is, what are you doing now that you've retired? What are your challenges? What are you spending most on? What are you enjoying? Most of them actually enjoyed the rest. They had time to give back to society. And also, what are you not enjoying? What causes you stress? So things like healthcare and low income are concerned to the retirees. And now from this, then it's to encourage our members to look at having post-retirement medical schemes, or even income adequacy, that we are always having, our eyes on how much money we have for retirement, so that when we proceed to retirement, then we have enough money to fund our activities. Then finally, we looked at the question of inheritance. What is the attitude of Kenyans towards inheritance? Do we write wills? Do we nominate beneficiaries? Are women or men more likely to allocate money to their spouses? So it had very interesting results. At least one of the findings we got from this report is that both men and women are very generous when it comes to nomination of beneficiaries and giving their spouses, part of their benefits in the event that they pass on. So we are very excited then to get on to this fifth study that looks at conflict, and I'll invite Wangeshi to take it up from here.
Thank you very much, Bansi. The time we have been waiting for is here. I can't wait to hear what the research findings are. And again, just to recap what Mr. Wafua had said, is that the reason we do research is so that we create policies and even products that meet the actual needs. You can be imagining that there's a problem whereas there isn't. So the research findings are very important because they help us to analyze and to make decisions based on actual facts. So to do that, I want to invite Madam Naomi May Mwangi. She's the academic lead for HR program at the Strathmore University Business School, undergraduate studies. Karibu sana, Naomi. Please tell us what you found out, what were your methods, what were your sampling, and what was your design? How did you arrive at the findings? Karibu.
Okay, thank you very much, Wangeshi. Thank you very much, Bansi. Thank you very much, Simon, for giving me this opportunity. And indeed, this Enwealth Conversations has taken us through a journey. Bansi, we began in 2018, not 2017. So we've been doing, the second half of 2018, we've been doing an average of 2 conversations per year. So let's see whether we can manage to do another one by the end of the year. So this particular conversation was in conflict management and resolution in retirement benefit schemes. And what was the motivation for doing this study? I'm sure you've all seen in newspapers, in case law, those of you in HR, people complaining about the amount of benefits they are receiving, or in case of the death of the principal or your employee, the beneficiaries, even those maybe who have not been nominated as beneficiaries, come to claim the benefits, and it becomes a conflict situation because you want to ensure that the benefits go to the right beneficiaries. Yet there are other beneficiaries who by law or natural justice are entitled to these benefits. And at times, these kinds of cases or situations end up in the court of law. And as you know, benefits, retirement benefits, do not form part of the succession, especially the trustees who manage the retirement benefit scheme have a big role in managing these conflicts that may arise. So in my presentation, I am going to have some terms. So I am going to use RBS a lot, which means retirement benefit schemes, and RBA, which means Retirement Benefits Authority. So the objectives of this study were to, first of all, to determine the nature of conflicts encountered in the retirement benefit schemes. So we want to see or to determine the characteristics of the kind of conflicts that are experienced in retirement benefit schemes, to assess the extent to which stakeholders in these schemes understand the process of conflict management, to understand the extent to which the stakeholders understand the role of the trustees and RBA in conflict resolution, and finally to evaluate the consequences of conflict in retirement benefits fund management. So this research, or this survey, was conducted in February 2020. We targeted the various stakeholders in retirement benefit schemes management, that is the fund managers, beneficiaries, trustees, fund managers, and administrators. The target was 200 respondents, and we managed to get 176 valid responses. And these were the findings of this research. It was basically a quantitative research. So this means we sent out questionnaires, received feedback, and we analyzed this data using descriptive statistics. So first of all, the respondents were mainly from the financial services industry and the public service. We had 19% each from these two industries, the 11% of the respondents from the hospitality industry, and NGOs were another 11%. We also had people from education, health services, agriculture, construction, manufacturing, energy, publishing, transport, and warehousing. So the mix of the respondents was quite good. And then we asked the respondents, do they have any role in the management of pension schemes? 52% of the respondents were trustees. That means they are the management of the trust. They are appointed trustees either by the employer or the employees. Then we had 35% who are not, who are either members or beneficiaries. This means they are not trustees of their pension schemes. Then we had 9% being fund administrators. We had a few fund custodians and a few fund managers. So in answering our first questions, what is the nature of conflict that is encountered? And from our research, the most conflict occurs at processing of the final benefits. Yeah, that's at 40%. And if you put delayed benefits transfer at 6%, when you look at the whole aspect of benefits processing and transfer, that accounts to 46% of the respondents. So 46% of the respondents said most conflicts occur because of the benefits, yeah, the final benefits, whether the payment, the processing and the payment, or the transferring of the final benefits from one scheme to another. And this is benefits. Then the other thing was issues regarding how the scheme is managed. Yes, so we had issues such as trust expenses. 13% of the respondents said they have conflicts, yeah, because of the trustee expenses. And this relates to the first Enwealth conversation that we did, that whereby we were talking about governance of RBS schemes, yeah, and how much the trustees are getting paid and how much expenses they're incurring in managing this, the RBS. So that is a big area of conflict. Then the other conflict is how the trustees are elected or appointed. Yeah. And then we have how the scheme does its investments. Also, this is a role that the trustees play in the RBS. So the whole aspect of governance of the retirement benefit schemes came out once again, and accountability, the level of accountability or the fiduciary responsibility that trustees have towards the members of the scheme. Are they actually working towards the benefit of the beneficiaries? Otherwise, why would there be conflict when it comes to the amount of expenses they're incurring, how they're investing in the scheme? And then other characteristics of the conflict, this was in terms of the number of conflicts they have come across or that they have encountered. More than 50% of the respondents had encountered more than one conflict in the past 1 year. And from the survey, 12%, 65% of the respondents spend more than 1 hour dealing with pension-related conflicts. Out of this 65%, 12.5% of the people say they spent more than 6 hours per week handling pension-related conflicts. And this is a lot of time when you consider the fact that many of these trustees, this is not their main job. They also have another job in their organization. And this is a lot of manpower spent managing conflicts. And then the other thing is that these conflicts occurred at the point of accessing benefits, either at retirement or termination of employment by the employer at 46%. And this is consistent with the first question we asked. Yeah, at what point or what are the major causes of conflicts, yeah, which was accessing of retirement benefits or transferring the retirement benefits. Bansi, how many more minutes? Please let me know when I'm running out of time.
It's okay. You have.
Then, okay, then the other question, the ultimate responsibility in managing conflict in pension funds. So most of the respondents understood that the trustees have the ultimate responsibility, but also felt that RBA and HR managers also play a role. Yeah, they also play a role, should play a role in managing these conflicts in pension funds. So we know one of the ways of that retirement benefit schemes can manage conflict is to have a conflict resolution policy within the scheme. So we asked the respondents, do you have a conflict resolution policy for your scheme? And only 26% of the respondents said yes. Yes, yeah, yes, this is less than a third of the respondents. 37% of the people said no, and another 37% said they don't know. Yeah, so which begs the question then, how are conflicts being resolved if there is no policy, or if people do not know whether they have a policy or not? So there's a gap there, yeah, in terms of the policy or the information that is available to the members of the scheme, including the trustees. Then we asked the respondents to give suggestions of interventions that retirement benefit schemes can use in order to improve conflict management. And effective member training, yeah, was a major response given, and also increased effective trustee training. So when we look at the aspect of training, this comes to 40% of the respondents who recommended training. So this may and the kind of training that is being given to trustees and even to the members. Yeah, so maybe this kind of training, the current trainings that are available for the trustees and the members is not addressing this issue of conflict management. Then improved governance of pension schemes was another way that the respondents saw as a method to improve conflict management, and then improving communication between the different parties within the industry. So these are the players, you know, between the fund manager, the custodian, the administrator, the trustee. There's need for improved communication between these different parties. Then the issue of compliance to trust deed and rules of the scheme. Another 15% of the respondents said this is important. So when you look at these interventions that are being recommended by the respondents, training comes out clearly, governance of the schemes and how schemes are governed, and communication, yeah, communication between the different players in the industry. So we all know that conflict is not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, too little conflict may lead to especially from organizations' perspectives, and when you're managing people and organizations, may lead to low productivity because people are not seeking ways to improve the way they do things, to improve the processes. But also on the other hand, too much conflict can lead to low productivity. So the idea is to balance, yeah, the conflicts that you experience in an organization, and in this particular case in a scheme. So we thought, yeah, so as one of the objectives, have the respondents experienced any positive outcomes out of the conflict resolution process, yeah? And there were some positives. For example, better understanding of pension matters, better solutions to handling pension-related queries, increased awareness of the importance of active member participation in scheme matters, improved working relationships between the members, the sponsor and the trustees, and only less than 5% of the respondents said there were no positives. So if conflict is managed well, yeah, it may actually have positive outcomes. However, there are negative consequences, and there were many, and some of them were very personal to the respondents. For example, personal insults or attacks. Some people were harassed. There was reputation tarnishing, financial loss, legal consequences, penalties by the regulator, contract loss in terms of for the service providers, then general losses, yeah, absconding of duties, and even increased employee and employer conflict. So this brings me back to the point that we have to find ways to manage conflict in retirement benefits here, because as you can see, the negative consequences are more, because you can say that the conflict in retirement benefit schemes is not being managed very well. So in conclusion, we can say that pension pension fund trustees and other stakeholders should seek ways to improve the process of assessing the pension funds, and that the employee should understand the basis of computing the final benefits due to the pensioner. Yeah, so this will only come about if there is a proper training, good communication between the employee, beneficiaries, and the stakeholders in retirement benefits management, especially the trustees. Then there is the need to have a conflict resolution policy that all the stakeholders should be aware of, especially the members or beneficiaries and the trustees. Then, so on the way forward, once again, the issue of governance in retirement benefit schemes remains a point of concern, and communication in creating awareness and training is important to reduce conflict. And as I said, the idea is not to absolutely remove the conflict. Yeah, it's to increase the positive and decrease the negative. Thank you very much. I can take questions now.
Wow, thank you so much, Naomi. Thank you for a comprehensive report. We really appreciate the support and the involvement of the university in giving us this report. I'd like to check if you have any questions, please post them on the Q&A. We want to hear what your queries are. What has been mentioned is that the causes of conflict are lack of information, non-remittance of pension deductions and delayed payments. And we have had that conflict, too little conflict and too much conflict is not good. You have to find a balance with that, and a recommendation that conflict resolution policies should be included in the schemes. Do we have any questions? There's a question from Kome. He asks, I wanted to know if the survey is available to us. Also, the question of conflict resolution policy was posed to trustees alone, or was it asked to all the respondents? I'll ask that question again. He wanted to know if the survey will be made available to participants, and he's also asking on the question of conflict resolution policy, was the question posed only to trustees or to all respondents?
Okay, I can answer that. I think we have a summary of the survey that is available, and usually the Enwealth conversations reports are put on the Enwealth website and they're available. Please confirm that, Bansi. At least the last four are there.
Yes, I confirm
yes.
that the report will be available.
Yes, it will be available. The question on policy was posed to all respondents, both those who are trustees and those who are not.
Okay, yes. Excellent. Thank you, Naomi. There's another question. What is RBA doing currently with regards to conflict management? Do you want to answer that, or do we wait for the RBA representative?
Yes, let's wait for the RBA representative to answer. I cannot speak on their behalf.
Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Naomi.
Okay.
We really appreciate you. We'd like to invite Enwealth representatives to respond to that survey and to the findings. We will begin with Orpa Wanyama. She's in charge of legal and compliance, and after her will be the general manager, and I will introduce him when he's about to take his vote. So Orpa Wanyama, please unmute your mic and take the floor.
Well, good morning to everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Well, my name is Opa Wanyama, and I will be taking you through the management of dispute resolution in retirement benefit schemes, and I'll be looking at the legal perspective. Okay, from the research, we realized that conflicts arise in between different entities in the sector, that is trustees, members, beneficiaries, sponsors, service providers, and regulators. And there are various provisions of the law that guide on how dispute resolution is supposed to be handled. Starting with the supreme law of the land, which is the Constitution, under Article 159(2), while our judicial officers are advised to promote the use of alternative dispute resolution as a mode of solving disputes between different parties. They are encouraged to promote use of reconciliation, mediation, arbitration, and traditional dispute resolution mechanisms. This is just a way to ensure that disputes are handled in a more faster way and that people do not feel aggrieved, and they're able to access justice in a timely manner. The Civil Procedure Act, which is the act that guides on how civil cases are supposed to be handled, also provides for mediation as a way of, or as a mode of settling disputes. Mediation as a way of settling dispute is a bit cost-effective, flexible, efficient, and confidential, as opposed to the court procedures, which normally take quite some time and they are quite costly for for the normal mwananchi. The Civil Procedure, again, under Section 59B, provides for reference of cases to mediation. So these could be cases that are already in court, but the parties feel that mediation would allow the cases to proceed faster and it would be cheaper for them. Then such cases could be referred to mediation as a way of settlement of the dispute. Back home, Regulation 7V of the Retirement Benefits, Occupational Retirement Benefit Schemes provides that every scheme shall provide for the manner in which disputes are supposed to be handled. So the term there is shall provide. So in each and every trust deeds that are registered with RBA, there has to be a provision on how settlement of disputes is supposed to be done. Mostly, trust deeds have always provided for arbitration as a way of settlement of dispute. Again, arbitration is faster, and you get a neutral party, who the parties are a neutral person to arbitrate, who the parties are involved in choosing who would be the arbitrator for their matter. This is quite flexible as opposed to your normal cases in court. Again, Section 46 of the Retirement Benefits Act provides for appeals to the Chief Executive Officer by any member who feels aggrieved by a decision made by either the trustee, the fund manager, or any service provider that makes a decision and the member feels that the decision didn't favor them or they still feel aggrieved. They have an opportunity to appeal to the Chief Executive Officer of RBA. Further, once the CEO makes a decision and the member still feels aggrieved, then they have a right to appeal to the appeals tribunal, which is created under Section 47 of the RBA Act. Okay, the appeals tribunal has the powers of the first class subordinate court, and this tribunal has powers to summon witnesses, to take evidence upon oath or affirmations, to call the production of books and other documents. So you see, it's like a fully fledged court, which is able to hear appeals and make decisions basing on the evidence that has been collected. Okay, from the study again, we realized that the conflicts between the different entities in the sectors mostly arise based on aspects such as statutory and regulatory compliance, either because either the trustees are not aware of the compliance, what they're supposed to be doing in terms of compliance in terms of filing of returns, filing of documentations with the Retirement Benefits Authority, Payment of benefits. I think all trustees should be aware that payment of benefits is supposed to be done within 30 days upon receipt of the requisite documents, and transfer of benefits is supposed to be done within 60 days. So it is upon the trustees to ensure that such statutory provisions are complied with. Trustee election, again, is a sector where we've had a lot of conflicts, either because a member petitions, candidate petitions, feeling that the election was not free and fair. So what are the trustees supposed to do to ensure that there is smooth running in terms of election procedures? RBA in 2018, I think on 25th of October, came out with governance guidelines just to ensure that pension schemes are governed in the correct way. So it is advisable that trustees prepare, execute, and have in place a trustee election policy, which guides on how elections are supposed to be handled. And in case of grievances, which is the first step, where should I go as an aggrieved party? Okay, how soon am I able to get a solution in case of petition? On scheme investments, again, trustees are mandated to appoint service providers to do the investments for the fund, and also have in place an investment policy statement to ensure that the funds are invested in accordance to the law and in accordance to the investment policy statement. So it is upon the trustees to ensure that for us to not to eradicate conflicts, but to try and minimize these conflicts, that we have an investment policy statement, we have an election election policy, just to give guidance on how things are supposed to be done in the scheme. On selection of service providers, again, I think this is also around policy. The trustees may find it prudent to come up with a procurement policy which guides on how service providers are supposed to be sourced, so that you don't have service providers sourced in an unfair manner, maybe because they know the chair or things of the sort. So let's have procedure on how to procure these service providers. On reporting, again, there is statutory provisions on reporting in terms of filing of returns, filing of audited accounts and the likes. So it is upon us as trustees to ensure that we adhere to such provisions of the law. On communications with stakeholders being the members of the scheme, service providers, sponsors, and regulators, again, it is very important that communication lines are proper, and our RBA Act has provided for tools under which communications should be done. For members, it is your member statements to be issued to the members or to be made available to the members. To the service providers, I think there should be in place proper service level agreements just to provide for the functions and the timelines within which services are supposed to be handled. Moving on, we propose that the following steps be used in aid to not to eradicate, but to reduce the conflicts that pension schemes may be prone to. And that is mostly on formulation of scheme governance policy documents in line with Legal Notice 193 of 2018. For example, we could have a communication policy which clearly stipulates the communication tools and communication timelines to the various stakeholders of the scheme. Risk management policy, this would guide on how risk could be managed within the scheme. Election policy, again, will guide on how elections are supposed to be handled. And if this is done, we are sure that this will minimize the occurrences of conflicts that we are having. I think the other very important policy to have would be a death benefits policy, because I think most of the conflicts that arise are around payment of death benefits and how they are distributed by the trustees. So this policy would be a very important document to guide the trustees on the procedure as well as the documentations that they would be requiring before death benefits are disbursed. We're also advocating for strict adherence to statutory regulations and provisions. These are the laws provided for by the Retirement Benefits Act. This could be done through the aid of the administrator, just to educate the trustees on what the statutory provisions are and ensure compliance with these regulatory provisions. We also propose to have execution of service level agreement between the trustees and service providers, and clearly stipulate timelines within which services are supposed to be provided. This will aid a great deal in minimizing conflicts that may arise between the trustees and the service provider. Communication and education, again, this is very vital. We realize that most members do not know what their rights are within the scheme. So if the trustees would embrace the tools that are provided for under the Retirement Benefits Act to ensure that our members and as well as the stakeholders are well informed of the various rights and their responsibilities within the law, then we will be at a better place to reduce the conflicts that pension schemes may be facing. Thank you. I think with that, that is the highlight of what the legal side of the conflict resolution would be having from my end. And back to you, Bansi.
Okay. So thank you very much, Opa. Thank you for the legal advice you have given us. You've talked about the need to find alternative forms of dispute resolution and access justice in a timely manner. I like that. And then mediation is also a way of settling disputes that's more affordable. And you've also given us recommendations in minimizing conflict. We have a question from Jennifer Musoka. Thank you, Jennifer, for the question. She's asking, good morning, do retirement benefits form part of the estate of the deceased? If yes or no, how does this impact on the role of trustees when paying dues? Do retirement benefits form part of the estate of the deceased? If yes or no, how does this impact on the role of trustees when paying dues? Oprah, if you could take that question, we'll appreciate it.
Thank you. So the answer to that question is that pension benefits do not form part of the estate of a deceased person. So in distribution of these death benefits, then the trustees are supposed to take a consideration of the nomination of beneficiary form that was filled by the member. And in the absence of such, then the trustees have discretion to decide on how the distribution would be done. Of course, making consideration to the dependents of the deceased and documenting the reasons as to why they have made a decision to distribute such benefits in a particular manner.
Okay, thank you very much. Jennifer, I hope your question has been answered. I'd like to take this opportunity to invite our next panelist. Oprah, I want to thank you very much for your participation and for your advice. I'd like to invite the General Manager of Enwealth, Mr. George Oyuga. It's an honor and privilege to invite you to give us your analysis, your interpretation of the research findings. Karibu sana, Mr. Oyuga.
Thank you very much, moderator, together with Bansi Wangeshi, and also fellow panelists and attendees. It's indeed a pleasure to host you today in this very, very important subject on conflict resolution and management. Now, we've been taken through a couple of things, and I just wanted to highlight something that in as much as all the modalities to resolve conflicts within the schemes and also within our different work environments are done, one common factor around all of them is the fact that they have a cost perspective to them. And this is in terms of time, in terms of resources, and also in terms of the monetary part of it. So I'll use the alternative dispute resolution mechanism framework that has been shared in the detailed report due to this exercise, and just highlight something and ask ourselves a question just to challenge us. That if time and resources and money bring in the cost perspective and many other cost issues that I may not also be able to mention come into perspective, then we can explore a more cheaper model at times, in as much as the modalities to resolve conflicts are there. And the question in the House is this: what if we took a step backward and just looked at the period before the conflict arose, or the period before the dispute actually came into being? And that is the challenge, to say that like in the framework laid for the alternative dispute resolution, there is the party agreement, the first step, the procedure, then lastly there we have the outcome that has the settlements and the determination. But the question then would be, is there something that you could have done differently to prevent the conflict? Or is there something that you could have done differently to prevent the dispute from arising? And that is the big question that is in the House. So what I'm calling us to do is to explore, and the answer things different for you and would also make you different, either as a member of the scheme and also as a trustee who is managing the scheme, or also as a service provider to these retirement benefit schemes. So when we attempt to answer that question, then it brings us to something to try and explore what lies in the yonder at sunset before the conflict arose, at sunrise, I mean, before the conflict arose, and also at sunrise before the dispute arose. So I am pushing us or urging us to explore, to embrace early prevention as one of the measures of conflict resolution as well. So in that particular case, when we embrace early prevention, then what we are saying is, are we able to set up right? Are we able to engage right? And are we able to manage right? And if we do so, as we manage right also, are we also able to build the right capacities for everything to continue in a more leveled way and in a manner that will reduce the conflicts, if not maybe eliminate them if the possibility is there. So that is where we come in as Enwealth. We are a friend of members. We are a friend to service providers. We help with the compliance of regulations, as well as the fact that trustees can rely on us to help them manage the role that they have been given, the fiduciary role that is very, very important in their calling as trustees. So we will assist you to set up right in the schemes. We'll assist with the several service level agreements, reviews, compliance audits, the scheme documents, policy drafting, the conflict resolution policy itself, good governance policies that my colleague Opa mentioned about, and we also come in to offer training services to also help the consultancy services that we do. And these are meant to help build the right capacity to be able to do that. We tailor them towards the members, like member education and trainings. We tailor them towards trustees, right from the point where there is trustee onboarding and training. There is financial literacy that touches on everybody else. And then there is also skills development. So all that will be coupled in what we have. So what we try to explore is to allow members in their individual life journeys to be able to achieve what we have also embraced as our vision as at Enwealth, which is a lifetime of financial well-being and dignity. And I pick an unknown quote by an unknown person that says, the worst conflict is that of a member and his money. The worst conflict is that of a member and his money. So if you are there, you are maybe identifying other conflicts out there, but there is a conflict between you and your money, then talk to us as Enwealth. Thank you very much. I'll back to you, our panelists.
Thank you. Thank you so much, George, for that overview. And yes, as you said, we'd be more than happy to assist the members who've joined us, the trustees and the boards that are represented here, in terms of coming up with conflict resolution policies or relevant policies that will help them deal with conflicts. And we have a question for you, who are joining us are the participants, and it should be on your screen. Does your scheme have a conflict resolution policy? Because we've talked about having the necessary documentation to just help us deal with conflict. So please just answer it's a yes or a no. And then after you give us the responses, I'd want to hear from two of you. One of you who have a conflict resolution, I'd want to hear how does that work for you? Do you find it to be helpful? Has it offered you solutions in the past? And for those who don't have, I'd also want to hear from one of you. Why is it that you don't have one? Is it that you haven't gotten time to sit and do it? Is it that you don't think it is important or helpful? And once you give us your feedback, we'll have two winners who will qualify for a gift from my colleague, Gloria. She'll send you something on your phone just for participating. So please feel free to raise your hand if you want to share your responses. If you have a conflict resolution policy, use the raise hand button. I'll see you and then I'll unmute you. If you don't have one, also use the raise hand button. I'll see your name and I'll unmute you. And we just want to hear from you. If you have one, has it worked for you? If you don't have one, why not? Then we'll continue with the session. I see you, Kefa. I'll allow you to talk. You may unmute yourself, Kefa, Mr. Kefa Owino, and Sophie Walayula. Kefa, are you there with us? All right, maybe Sophie, are you there?
Yes. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you for this opportunity. I'm Sophie Nekoe Waliaula from Kibabi University. Okay, I've just been elected as a trustee of pension. So I'm new in this field and I'm happy to join this team. So in our university, we don't have that conflict resolution policy, but as I said, Kibabi is still growing. So we haven't had we've only had 3 teams, and we are planning to sit down and look at those, the gaps that have been there. So that is why we don't have a conflict resolution policy. And from what we experienced in our last election, we did that one yesterday. So thank you, and I know we will expedite on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sophie, for your candor. Yes, given elections are a very dicey period, so it's good that you recognize the need to have one in place, and we will be more than happy to support you getting one done as soon as possible. Kefa, are you there? Kefa Owino? If he's not there, I'll allow Dominic. Dominic Ondoro, please just unmute yourself and let us know whether you have a policy or not.
Yeah, we don't have this particular policy. Dominic Ondoro from CAPS. We have tried to put up the compulsory policies. As you are aware from last year, there are a number of policies required. And so we staggered the ones which are compulsory and the other ones which are now. So hopefully maybe this year we'll probably be able to do this. And of course, also with the COVID pandemic, we have been slowed down a bit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dominic, also for your candor. Yes, it makes sense to start with the ones that are most urgent and then continue with the rest, but we'll be also happy to help you. And just so that I can share the results of the poll, they should be on your screen. It's interesting to see that 71% of us don't have the conflict resolution policy. So it speaks to the fact that there's a lot of work to be done in our schemes just to ensure that we are compliant, and also that we have policies that will help us as trustees effectively govern our funds. So with that, I think it's time to move over to the next presenter. We have with us Miss Naomi Jelimo. Naomi works with the Institute of Human Resource Management. As you know, IHRM has been one of our partners since we started the Enwealth conversation, and we've really enjoyed your partnership, Naomi, and please pass this to the rest of the team. So Naomi will be talking to us from a HR perspective. As we are undertaking the survey, we also talk to HR managers just to find out what's the experience like when it comes to conflict. Naomi, time is looking really bad, so I'll give you around 7 minutes to give us your presentation, and after that we'll pick up the questions. Welcome, Naomi.
Okay. Thank you, Bansi. It's a great honor to be with you as our partners, Enwealth. I want to take this opportunity to...
Naomi, please unmute your mic.
Good morning. You can hear me now? Is it okay now? Yeah, I want to take this opportunity to thank all of you. It is a wonderful discussion surrounding retirement benefits, which is a function of HR. It is a social security for employees in an organization. Management of retirement benefits is a way of honoring employees and ensuring that their productivity is high due to social security in future. So I'll take a very little short time. A lot has been discussed surrounding RBA, and I want to add that from HR perspective, retirement benefits management is very key in an organization. It is very key because it touches on employees' life after employment. Also, it touches on the health of the employee after retirement. And it's a lot of emphasis needs to be put on this Retirement Benefits Act because of it is a sense of motivating employees, and also it's a sense of making sure that you have a workforce which has security. So we have discussed about RBA Act, and from my perspective, I think the Act is stipulating a lot of guidelines and regulations in regard to managing the RBA. But I think the conflict arises as a result of ignorance of this law, or so many employers or the trustees are not adhering to the RBA Act. Actually, the conflict is adherence to the Act. Say that HR professionals or the people who are trustees in different schemes don't really adhere to RBA requirements says. Another conflict is about when it comes to calculating the terminal benefits, and it arises as a result of non-remittance of the pension by the employers, that they don't remit in time. And when they don't remit in time, it will translate to less interest or no interest at all for the benefits. So at the end of it all, it'll arise a conflict where the employee doesn't earn what is expected actually to be earned. In terms of also the terminal benefits, there is an issue of employers failing to use the right ratio as right ratio of monthly deductions as stipulated in the Act. So in the process, it all surrounds the enforcement of the Act in terms of following and the rest. So another issue, there is also a conflict mostly as a result of the custodian. The difference between the link between the custodian and the administrators, not able to put the records in place. I have an example of an umbrella sector scheme where there was an umbrella scheme where the administrator was not updating the records in good time. So by the time the management or the trustees realized that they were not being served correctly, it was too late. But fortunately, RBA came in to sort out the issue, and the umbrella scheme was put under receivership or under interim administrator. I think up to now, they have not even gotten the administrator. So those are some of the conflicts, because employees will feel that they are not catered for. Employees will feel that the trustees are not doing the right thing. The issue also is the training of the trustees. The trustees, they act in the interest of the employees. But if they are not trained well, or they don't have the right certification, they may not be able to manage the scheme well. So I've mentioned issues, the conflict of benefits. I've also mentioned the issue of management of the scheme, which is entirely to the entirely dependent on the trustees' management and the training. So another thing I would recommend to mitigate this is to RBA to not only issue the regulations, but to ensure that there is enforcement of the same, to do supervision and also to do training, sensitization of the employees and also sensitization of the employers. Because out there, employees are not aware what the regulations are all about, what are their powers, or what happens in case there are conflicts. Actually, conflict is as a result of non-adherence of the RBA Act. Otherwise, the RBA Act regulates. The problem is the enforcement. Thank you, Bansi. Back to you, Bansi.
Okay, thank you so much, Naomi. Thank you for the highlights. You have brought out that retirement benefits benefit the employees because then they have social security. And then you have also said that the regulations are sometimes not followed in terms of management. And there's a need for RBA to sensitize both parties, both employees and the trustees, but also to ensure that there's compliance. Thank you very much, Naomi. I want to check if there's a question. If you have a question, please post on the Q&A. If not, all right, we'll just keep posting your questions there. We could take them at the end and we'll request the specific panelist to answer the question. I would, thank you, Naomi. You can unmute your mic. I want to introduce Elizabeth Irongo. She is the General Manager, Business Development and Client Service at ICA Asset Management Limited. Elizabeth, welcome. Please take on the floor and you can unmute your mic.
All right. Thank you very much, Wangeshi. I really appreciate. This has been a very good conversation, and I've enjoyed every bit of it. It is very important that our trustees get to learn and to see, to expand their knowledge. And so this morning, I'm very excited to be part of this team. So just to start us off, my name is Elizabeth Irongo, and I work with ICA Lion Asset Management. And ICA Lion is an asset manager who is licensed by both RBA and CMA. So we offer the services of fund management, a key service provision for retirement benefits. And of course, as a provider of this service, we also encounter conflicts in the course of delivering our service. ICA Lion has been in the industry for 35 years, and our mantra is always to protect and to grow our investors' wealth. So without taking further time, I'm just going to delve deeply into the conversation. The role of a manager, just to give us a heads up, is that one is that we must have the duty of care. We are entrusted with the funds from these pension schemes and ultimately from the members. Our duty as your fund managers and as fund managers is basically to take care of these funds. And the duty of care means that our clients come ahead of ourselves, ahead of our business, ahead of myself, and therefore every decision that is being made should be made with the client in mind. And then we should make prudent investment decisions on behalf of the trustees who are representatives of the membership. And of course, as you may all be aware, we have fiduciary duties to your members and to everybody who is a stakeholder in the scheme. So how does conflict arise when it comes to fund management? Trustees normally will appoint a fund manager to go ahead and look for suitable investments that would help the schemes to grow, the schemes to achieve the objectives that have been set out. And we are normally given these objectives through the investment policy statement. But conflicts arise because in a professional relationship between an investment manager and a client, there is the relationship of the principal and agent. We are your agent as your fund managers. We are agents here, and the trustees or the scheme is the principal. And anytime you have this relationship, you find that there arises a conflict just by the virtue of the fact that one person is representing the other. And obviously, sometimes there may arise situations where you find the agents now take care of themselves more than they take care of the client or the principal who has actually appointed them. So the other thing about you need to know about the conflicts that may arise is that the client may be less informed, less well informed than the agent. In this case, we are saying the fund manager comes with all this knowledge, jargon, and all that, telling you about markets, telling you about how they do research, how we will select the best, securities for you and things like that. But we are telling to maybe, let's take to a biotechnologist who simply sits back in a lab somewhere and does not understand how markets operate. So there is an asymmetry of information, and that causes a conflict already because they are more likely to believe me. And so the fact that the agent has more information than the client, that can bring in a conflict because unless the agent then brings the right information, is truthful, has the trust, and has the mindset to remain focused on the client and to solidly deliver on the objectives of the client, then you might find that sometimes the information as it is represented may not always be factual. Something that I would want to point out here is that some conflicts of interest are inherent to the investment profession. Others arise as a function of investment activity. So some are just inherent. Like, for example, we are in the business of making investment decisions. So at our work, there are some things that will just inherently fall into our space. For example, I must choose a broker to execute your trade. So that one, as much as we would want to agree, to have a debate around it. We find that the investment manager may actually run with such a decision and use their own parameters to select who they use and things like that. Others are it's a function of the investment activity. All of these need to be managed and communicated to the clients, and their impact on client outcomes should always be minimized. So communication is very, very important between a manager and the fund or the scheme or the trustees. We need to communicate. Here we have a conflict, or here we foresee this challenge and things like that, so that it is very clear from the onset what could be the area of conflict that arise during the delivery of service. So what are the categories of conflicts of interest? There are about 6 categories of conflicts of interest when it comes to fund management. One is conflict arising as a result of differences in objectives between a firm and its client. So the firm's objectives being one thing and the client's objectives being another. Then conflicts arising as a result of differences in objective between an employee and the investment management firm. So the employees of the investment management firm have their own objectives, and the company also has an objective. So those can also arise as a conflict area. Then there are conflicts that arise as a result of different objectives between an employee and a client of the firm. So where you have the firm has appointed us and has been appointed by a client, and there can be a conflict between the employee and that particular client themselves. Then conflicts arising between the different interests of a firm's clients. There are also conflicts between any party and the law. So we know that also the law comes in when we are all governed. We are under RBA, for example. There could be conflicts between a party and the law. And then there are conflicts between an employee's profession and their firm. So different categories. There are very many, and it is today we are only going very high level on these, but it is important that we understand the sources of or categories of conflicts of interest while managing funds. So the most common conflicts that a fund manager would encounter is one, transactional conflicts. For example, when a fund manager is recommending a fund, let's say we are looking for a private equity fund, which is one of the options that a scheme can invest in. A manager may recommend a high fee fund versus recommending a low fee fund because maybe they are being rewarded with a commission there's a commission element that comes in. So that becomes a transactional conflict. Then another type of conflict that you'll encounter is that transactions using affiliates. And affiliates are related parties. For example, you find a fund manager may be part of a large group. So let's take ICA Lion. We are insurers also, and maybe the trustees are looking for insurance, an insurance cover. It is possible for us to always recommend ourselves, affiliates. So there could be those who are related to a bank. They could always recommend the same bank, an affiliated bank and things like that. Then there are transactions with conflicts that arise when you're doing transactions with affiliates, that is buying and selling from an affiliate. So maybe a company that you're related with is, for example, trading in the exchange. And because you're related, then a manager may find themselves skewed in recommending a buy or a sell that particular affiliate. Then transactions with brokers. As your fund managers, we use intermediaries to get into the market to get to complete transactions, buying and selling of securities through the exchange. So brokers are part of that transaction, and brokers normally will pay or will give you research, will always give fund managers research in exchange for giving them business. So you find that those ones are called soft dollars. So you really are not paying them hard money, but if a broker is going to give you more research, and therefore you find that your dealers are then having to give them more business, then there is a compensation mechanism that is happening there, and that is what is being called soft dollars. So very important that we be aware that brokers do get to be rewarded for the work that they do in terms of research, and fund managers need to guard against being very skewed towards a certain broker because of maybe the research that they're getting from such brokers. Then another common conflict that we encounter is conflicts arising from servicing multiple relationships. So case in point, you have a parent company and you also have other clients. So you find there could be conflict because the relationships are multiple. You're not only, for example, you have appointed as your fund manager, and you're also insuring with ourselves. If there are no Chinese wall between the group company or the parent company and the fund manager, you'll find that then there could be conflicts in terms of how we service multiple relationships when it comes to shared clients between all those group companies and things like that. Moving on. The sixth one is investing as both principal and agents. So fund managers do own some products, and also other service providers have products. So you find that when you're investing, or we are recommending the principal to invest in a product that is related to ourselves, like your fund managers, then there is a conflict that needs to be disclosed and everything laid on the table so that an independent or a very objective decision is taken. It is not wrong to recommend an investment that is owned or that is governed or that is run by my own company, but I need to disclose that. I cannot go ahead and buy you a known product without coming back to you and saying, this is a product that we are selling, and these are the features and benefits that come with it. So that is very clear. Then voting. We are entitled and we are given the rights to go voting, especially proxy voting when it comes to listed securities. So if, for example, a fund manager is taking a proxy vote on a company that is affiliated, what happens? Do we disclose that? Do we make it a point to make sure that the trustees have a say and know how we are going to vote, so that we are not swayed by the fact that we do have a relationship with that particular company? Then the eighth common conflict that can arise is the transaction ordering and order allocations. So we've got 60 clients in our security. Who gets it first? Who gets it last? How much do you get? So is there a policy around how we order, how we allocate the orders and things like that? Because I could disadvantage you by making sure that your orders are always allocated last, or I first allocate to company account, my company accounts, and then the client accounts. So those are the conflicts that can arise So there needs to be a policy around order, allocation, and how transactions are carried. See these demonstrated in policy documents that we have. Then there are conflicts that arise from different business objectives, for example, asset acquisitions versus performance delivery through fee. So when a fund manager is pursuing basically maybe the growth in their assets under management and they keep undercutting the fees, but maybe they're also compromising on their service that they deliver to you as scheme trustees. So those are conflicts that can arise. So we've only highlighted 9 of them. There is deeper information to this, and you can read more about all this. How then do we manage these conflicts as we have highlighted them? So we should always seek to protect our clients. That's what we stated, or I stated at the beginning. So reduce and where possible, eliminate the potential for conflicts. We should we should require agents to act in a certain manner. So trustees should require the agent or the fund manager to act in a certain manner and use guidance to mitigate. Then there should be full disclosure to those conflicts. So if, for example, I'm in a banking group and we have placed money with that bank and it's a good bank, well regulated, it is only fair that we always then disclose what we have placed in that bank, so that continuously there is a third eye that is looking at what the fund manager is doing. And ways to combat this, and this is almost my last slide, many of the conflicts relating to transactions undertaken by agents for their clients can and often are managed away through the application of specific detailed policies and processes. So it is policies, it's processes that will help us to guard ourselves against conflicts when it comes to servicing you as trustees. So there's some of the policies that and processes that need to be in place is best execution policy. Best execution is basically how do we go to the market? How do we ensure that you don't buy your securities in the market always at the highest price? You can benchmark and say, did we get the best price when we went to the market? And there should be a policy for ensuring that the fund manager is always executing at the best prices, not at the lowest. We call it best because maybe the highest price was the best price that day. And so it's possible for us to demonstrate that, and that's why we keep records. Then trade allocation, we should have a policy around trade allocation, how we allocate trades. For example, if I'm buying for 60 clients, the same stock, how will I allocate all of them so that they get a fair and equitable allocation of the trade they're about to do? Then internal trading. If fund managers are going to buy the same shares in the market because they are not disallowed from buying and selling in the stock market, how do we prevent them from front running their schemes that they are managing? So how do we make sure that we don't do that? We have an internal trading policy and a personal account dealing restriction. So for example, if you have just carried out a research, you find that as a fund manager, we do have a policy around that there is a closed season where if a research report has been done in-house and we have issued a recommendation, then all of us in the fund management company, we cannot go to the market and execute towards the same. So if I know that we have recommended a sell, then even my own portfolio, I cannot get an approval to go and sell that particular security. That prevents a conflict between a client and the fund manager. Then gift policy. We are always, when we are doing business with people, we tend to gift each other. So brokers will Christmas and they'll bring you maybe a wine or they'll bring you a notebook. There should be a policy around the giftings that you receive from service providers and stakeholders in business. And this policy basically disallows a certain level of gift that you can get, that you cannot get a gift of more than 10,000. Like in our company, you can't get a gift of more than 10,000 and miss to disclose it to the company, because that can skew you towards making decisions that are unfavorable, maybe skewed towards the gifting party. Then proxy voting, we've talked about that. Chinese walls, when we are in a group structure, it's very important that we ensure that there are Chinese walls. We cannot have crossovers of information. What the fund manager is doing and what the insurance company is doing, they are different. We should keep to that. Then general culture and policies. So the culture of the business is very important. A culture of integrity is very, very important. You should be trustworthy. We should be people who can be trusted and who can, can command confidence among our clients. Then independent compliance office is very important. That ensures that we are constantly having an independent third eye that is looking at what the manager is doing, then establishing a conflict committee in the event that conflicts arise, and they do arise, like Wafuba said, conflicts will always arise as long as you're working with people. Then do we have a committee? Yes, we do have committees that deal with conflict resolutions. Then, like I said, if you can't take away the conflict, then disclosure to the client is always very, very important. So that is in red. And that's much it about conflict. I'll just give you a highlight of the investment outlook as I come to the end of the presentation. The investment outlook this year has been quite a challenging year. And I know it started well. We all had goals. We all had aspirations for 2020. They've been thrown off a little bit. Let's just look at the investment outlook in a nutshell. Global and local GDP, performance of our economies. This is expected to sharply decline in 2020, but largely because of the COVID-19 pandemic, because COVID-19 pandemic almost locked any form of productivity. Productivity in those sectors went down and was crippled when you were told work from home, avoid travel, avoid this. Some businesses closed completely. So GDP is going to come much lower, actually negative this year. Global GDP will come negative. But for our local GDP, we still expect positive GDP number. This is, however, below the average of the last 5 years. 5 years, we've been doing an average of 5%. This year, we are saying GDP will decline towards the 1% levels, meaning that the productivity of our country is coming down, and largely because of the COVID-19 pandemic. The other things that you need to consider when looking at the global and local GDP is the geopolitics that may exacerbate the economic performance. Things like Brexit. Brexit is still happening despite COVID. And there seems to be no really full agreement between European Union and Britain, how they're going to handle that. Abenomics, this is more about Japan. This week, we just saw the Japanese Prime Minister resign due to health reasons. Abenomics is a big, big story there because Japan tends to be really big in terms of driving the global economy. The US-China trade wars, I think this has been playing out since last year, and Trump is not helping. We have US elections coming up in November. It's been a hot battle for the US for the first time. Is a bit escalating towards the negative. It doesn't look really nice. And being the biggest economy in the world, we do expect that there could be some negative, impact to the GDP. So those are some of the things that you need to look out for. Not to worry, because the future is still there. I think we will recover, especially because COVID-19 pandemic has been the big factor here. And I think we are getting to see the economy start largely to know how to cope with it and also to manage the infection rates and to reopen the economy. So they will recover, but the recovery is going to be slower than it had been anticipated. So for long-term investors, I would say, I think we are in a trough, but we will get out of it, and we will be steady again on our both feet. Inflation numbers, these will remain low or muted for the balance of the year, especially in Kenya, because demand is not there. We don't have the money. People don't have the monies in the economy. We've seen government trying to push money to people's pockets by bringing in projects like Kazi kwa Vijana, but that's not enough. As long as we are not earning a lot, then even the demand for goods and services keeps going down and therefore pushing prices lower. And then the other factor for Kenya is that rain has been good. Food inflation will remain muted for as long as we continue receiving sufficient rains in our country. Of course, something to worry about is the taxes that were introduced for fuel. I think those ones, if global fuel prices go up and the currency also tanks, we may see fuel prices go up, and therefore inch the inflation a little higher, but nothing significant. We don't expect double-digit inflation numbers. Interest rates have remained low globally, and even in Kenya, you may be aware that interest rates have come down quite significantly. And the reason why they've come down is because there is a shift by investors from risky assets to low-risk assets. So investors want to take cover. And there's a time, especially when COVID just happened, cash became king. And everybody wanted to remain either in cash or in dollars. So not dollar, yeah, cash, dollar, and gold. So you find that those are the assets that actually gained over the period. Then our currency, Kenyan currency, globally, emerging market currencies are expected to lose ground. Kenya shilling has already lost 6% this year. And while we would have expected that the shilling will lose more, we do not see the capacity for the shilling to lose a lot, to remain range bound, and largely because the government has the mechanism and the tools that will support the currency. Lastly, financial markets outlook. Equity markets, they've been on a downward trend. We've not seen the index below 2,000, but for now it's been below 2,000 for more than 2 months. I think it's short term, and it is because of the fact that COVID happened. But on a long-term basis, I think that as economies recover and reopen, we will see the equities market start to lift to the positive and start rewarding the risk taken there. Obviously, we have to be aware that some companies have been disrupted forever, and only those companies that reinvent themselves will then gain massively as we progress forward. Then fixed income markets, as interest rates, we've said they're remaining relatively low. Fixed income markets will remain attractive to most of the portfolios, and they're the ones which are yielding better, especially this year. They've held the bulk of the performance, and we expect that that will remain the case up to the end of the year. Then property market, which we cannot even delve or even go deep into it, which has recorded a decline in prices. Rental yields have come off, and so both price return and rental yields, they have come down. We only expect that the recovery will be gradual, and it is mostly anchored to the economic recovery as the economy starts to reopen and to gain traction towards growth. Thank you very much, and I will now take questions.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. That was very insightful. It's very comforting to know that as a fund manager, you have very many mechanisms to ensure that conflict at both a personal and organizational perspective are dealt with beforehand. And I think you've given us a lot of comfort and assurance that the future looks bright. Given this COVID season and what you're seeing in the market, I think all of us just expected your presentation to be very dull and discouraging, but it's good to know that better things lie in the future. And I'd want to actually also thank our participants. I see we have people from Uganda and Mauritius. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'll give you 2 questions, Elizabeth, before we move over to the last presentation. The first one is from Hajat, who's streaming in from Uganda, Kampala. They ask that given that we have COVID is impacting our markets, so there's a likelihood that we'll have very low interest rates this year. So this is likely to bring conflict. How do you prepare for that? Even as you think about having AGMs next year or member communication, how do you deal with that? And then the second question is from Jennifer Musoka, who asks, how do you declare interest? How are interest rates applied to pension contributions, and how do you go about the declared rate of return? Due to time, I'll just give you 1 minute to please answer the questions in summary, then we'll move over to the next session.
Right. So this year being a difficult year, you'll find that the returns that the fund managers will report will be subdued, maybe single digit. We are still on the positive territory, especially in Kenya. So that is a good thing. So at least your capital is preserved. So the returns will be lower. But when I talked about interest rates, I was meaning the money markets where we trade the fixed income securities. So not necessarily what the schemes will declare. Whatever the schemes will declare will mainly be driven by the total return that the fund manager will make. And this year will be bit lower than the usual, not the 20% levels that we normally record, maybe just below the 10% levels. So member returns will still be, to some extent, positive, not negative. I'm very optimistic that it's going to be positive because so far we are still on the positive territory. So how do we declare? I think together with your administrator and your auditor, you'll be able to determine how much you distribute. Some schemes distribute everything. Some schemes do have reserves, so they'll pull out into the reserves and show good stable returns in periods like these ones. So it depends with the policy again that you have as a scheme in terms of the distribution of the returns that fund managers make. But don't panic. I think one of the things you need to tell your members is not to panic. We are saving for retirement, and therefore they should be ready to ride some of these rough rides, but stability is coming. Their future is going to be brighter. Back to you, Bansi.
Thank you so much. It's good to know that the future will be brighter. So it gives me a lot of pleasure, great pleasure to introduce our last panelist, Ms. Anne Mugo. Anne Mugo is the Chief Manager Market Conduct at the Retirement Benefit Authority. She's been with the authority for about 20 years, and she actually established the Market Conduct Department in 2016. And I think all the conversations we've had today lay squarely in her department because they oversee sector governance, training of service providers, consumer education, and also consumer protection. So Anne, karibu sana. We look forward to hearing from you. I've seen you answer very many questions on the Q&A. Thank you. But I'm sure there'll be other hot ones coming after your presentation. So take it away. You have around 10 minutes, then we'll take the questions.
Thank you very much, Bansi, and I hope you can all hear me clearly. Good morning, everybody. Let me start by bringing the greetings from our CEO, Zomo Mutuku. He asked me to convey his greetings. He wasn't available, which is good because what you're discussing is very relevant to the department I head. I also recognize some of my colleagues are here as participants. Caro, I saw you, Nick, Cherop, and maybe others. And of course, Boniface, our retired colleague. So he will answer all the questions. Let me do a short presentation because as a trainer, I find that it is actually easier to talk about. Can you see everything, Bansi?
Yes.
All right. As a trainer, I find when you give the people you're talking to some material, it helps you to connect. So I'll quickly go through this. I won't talk on everything in each slide because you'll get the materials later. And we are also happy to engage with you even after this webinar. So I'll talk about those topics here. As an introduction, just to recognize the work that Enwealth has been doing. These surveys are very interesting to us as a regulator because you're actually helping us to know what's on the ground. And in this particular one, you're touching on an area that is quite challenging, often not adequately resourced in terms of people and also time. I had a question there about the sampling. You look at that. And in benchmarking, I also wanted to mention that Kenya was ranked second. I saw you're looking at other jurisdictions, so I hope you also rank as high. Enwealth often collaborates with us on training of stakeholders, both on our trustee development and also member training. And then just a comment that RBS disputes, which we are calling conflicts today, have a long tail. You can see the 3 examples I've given there. You have seen them in the papers. The teachers had a pension issue. Even ESC retirees all these years later, there's still complaints, and Kenya Railways is always in the papers. Employment conflicts tend to sometimes be reported as retirement benefits issues, but really they are not. And in such cases, we normally send them back to the sponsor. And then the last introductory comment is that having a dispute conflict resolution is very important, and you'll see it later. This slide, I will not talk much into it, is just statistics as at, I think this should be actually, sorry, how do I go back? Okay. Yeah, there we are. This should actually be December. And generally, just to see that the asset level in the industry is growing. So this is an industry that is generating a lot of interest in the economy. Government has a keen eye on us. And so some of these issues we are addressing are very important both to the policymakers and of course ourselves. Looking at coverage here, again important, we are trying to move this up in the coming 5 years, hopefully to about 30%. The rest of the issues, you look into them. This slide is just to show you the people that we normally have in the industry. I'm sure you're aware of all these people. Trustee is very critical. Of course, the regulator should be somewhere at the top. And all these people are the ones who are likely to have conflicts arising among themselves. So from our point of view, I decided to pick on a few causes and types of conflicts. Of course, I can't list all of them. And many of them have been addressed by the panelists before me. We have the nomination and election of trustees that has been mentioned. Non-remittance, very, very critical, and we are having a lot of concern, especially on public sector schemes. We are even trying to intervene at a policy level to get Treasury in their funding to the parastatals to look at whether they can fund the retirement benefits separately. Appointment of service providers has been touched. Often trustees may be accused of graft in these appointments. Sometimes it's not true, once in a while it may be, and we handle it with our supervision colleagues. Revision to scheme rules. This has caused a bit of conflict because you'll find that a lot of the cases coming to us and going as far as the courts have to do with the conversion from the defined benefit to defined contribution. Maybe it was not done right. People say that the formulas that were used were wrong. So this is a source of conflict. Property investment, that has been touched by my colleague from ICA. By the way, I started the ICA Lion Asset Management many years ago when I was in the private sector. Glad to see that it is going strong. Investment losses, again, this has been touched, and often trustees will be told that there have been negligence, but usually it is because of the market conditions. The ones that tend to cross our desks in the market conduct department are related to benefits and sometimes expenses. Excessive scheme expenses, that used to come up a lot, and as a result, we amended the Act in 2017 and introduced a new section where, with regard to remuneration of trustees, it is a requirement that members be involved in decision making. We may look at other areas of expenses as we go along. Computation distribution, very, very important. I answered earlier a question from Dominic about trustees' discretion in how funds are distributed when there is a death of a member. This, of course, is an area where trustees have absolute discretion. Sometimes it is reported to us that trustees have distributed contrary to what the beneficiaries thought, but we tend to take the side of the trustees when they have good reasons for doing it. Delayed payments, these usually may arise because of liquidity, like if a scheme has invested in assets that can't be liquidated quickly, but often these are because of records that have not been kept well, and therefore it takes a bit longer. There may be other challenges. And again, the fourth one there, records management, where the trustees don't have their records management well done, the queries on benefits will arise. I mentioned the one of challenges to CEO RBA decisions because when the complaints come to us and the disputes, we'll often give a ruling, and usually you'll see the ruling coming from myself or from some of our officers. When it's a higher level decision that needs almost like a direction, almost like the CEO is putting his foot down, then we call that direction, and that can also be challenged. And usually we get even trustees writing back to us. The CEO can revisit his decision, and as earlier, I think it was Orpa who talked about the legal issues. We have the RBA tribunal, RB appeals tribunal, where the matters can be escalated, in which case then CEO is the one being taken to the tribunal. It's often a very interesting situation. And of course, the last resort should be court ruling. We've seen a number of cases going to court, and we are a bit uncomfortable about that. Our approach to that is that we want to engage the judiciary, training them on the role of the RBA appeals tribunal, so that court will be ultimately last resort. I wanted to share these statistics. This is what we handled last financial year ended June 2020. You can see the complaints coming to the authority are not so many, and it's because of yourselves, trustees and service providers. When you handle these at the grassroots, then only a few of them come up to us. You can see we've ranked them by the numbers Withholding of benefits and paid benefits often tend to be frequent conflicts coming to us and going on up to pension settlement status and so on. Total conflicts we handled last financial year were 138. This was a double compared to the previous year, 2018-2019. And this shows there's a lot of interest among members about their benefits, and they are now actually raising issues, and they are ultimately reaching the regulator. We also have something called access to information is a new requirement that we must report to the Commission for Administrative Justice. And so that has just started. The level is still low. I wanted to share this just to show you that we are also challenged by other agencies on how we do our work. And last financial year, we are proud to say we scored 100% on this issue. What is the impact? A lot of this has been touched on, so I'll go through it quickly. Management and staff time is tied up. I have a very lean team in the department, and we find a lot of the time, like now this morning, I wanted the team to be on board, and I think only one of them could come on board. The other one is busy handling the complaints that have come in. Loss of benefits, where a conflict cannot be resolved, is rare, but it can happen. Sometimes we have demand for payment of interest where benefits have been delayed. There may be no provision in the law or even in the trust deed and rules, and this is an area where RBA can make a ruling. Increase in court cases, very interesting. We recently had to hire a lawyer specifically for market conduct for the complaints division, because we've got a lot of lawyers noticing that this is an area where they can come in and bring in court cases. It's an area we want to discourage and let them go through the normal complaints process up to the appeals tribunal. Frauds can arise. This usually happens, for example, where you haven't kept your records well and a member claims they were not paid and you have no records to show they were not paid. You may sometimes have to pay twice. Reputational risk to both yourselves and to ourselves as a regulator. And then the last point I wanted to put there is just that where we feel that the trustees and the key persons of the service providers are not playing their role right, we will have to put on the policeman hat and maybe come up with some vetting and removal. It has not happened. I think RBA has been a regulator that approaches issues softly, but sometimes we have to put on those that difficult role. Conflict management, how do we handle the issues of conflict? The Act and regulations was touched upon, so I will not go into a lot of details, but the one we mainly focus on is Section 46. These are complaints reaching us coming from the industry, coming up to ourselves, and being reported to the CEO. Proper and timely filing of complaints is very, very important, and we are glad that the industry is finding this a topical issue right now, because when complaints are handled quickly, then they rarely escalate. You may find trustees are able to address them quickly before they get to any other level. Currently, there are no penalties in the Act. I went through where there has been a delay in managing conflicts. Maybe it's an area we'll be looking into, but I don't think, as I said, our approach is always a soft approach. Maybe it's an area we shall look into. We have been releasing conduct guidelines, and I think the first one there, which is called the Good Governance Guidelines, was mentioned by our legal colleague panelist. We have the Treating Customers Fairly guidelines, which came up last year, and we need to, again, sensitize the industry on the provision. That one in particular is about conflict and is about communication and how to handle the relationships between the various players in the market. Remuneration guidelines are currently being looked at by the National Treasury before gazetting, and we have others that are lined up. Someone mentioned earlier about enforcement is very critical. And we are moving to enforcement now because after releasing the guidelines, what we wanted to do first is to sensitize the industry. We have been having quarterly sensitization. The turnout has not been very good, and we hope you'll have interest. Check our website and check any communication from us on when we shall be doing the sensitization. Enforcement is now the next level. Training, very important. Trustees have to be trained, is compulsory. The TDPK, Trustee Development Program Kenya, which is offered at the College of Insurance. I heard somebody earlier say that they are a new trustee. Make sure you get that training. although at the moment it has been suspended because of COVID. We are looking at how to offer it online. Governance training is also very important. We introduced it in a revised curriculum. We are proposing to do a training program for administrators in this financial year. We'll be coming to you to have input in the program we are developing. Continuous development is an area we've not yet gone into. That is, if trustees are trained, can we just revisit the training later and get them to go through another CPD program? I think this is my last slide on management. Member education, this has been mentioned, is very, very important. We have the annual general meeting where a bit of education is offered by trustees and also the service providers, but it's limited because of the time. Retirement planning is offered by administrators and the regulator as well. Open days and members' days, again, we encourage, especially the larger schemes, which are very complex, and members need to engage with trustees on exactly how their scheme is managed and what benefits they expect, etc. Those are some of the issues that you'll find addressed in the training. I'll not go into all that. RBA outreach to stakeholders. We have other outreach that we do. CSI is corporate, whatever, it was called CSR earlier. Open days, I've mentioned those, social media and the media. We do a lot of outreach through that. I've talked about training and continuous sensitization. Collaboration, very important. I've mentioned CAJ. CAJ is a Commission for Administrative Justice. We collaborate with them to check on us on how we are handling conflicts. EACC on integrity issues and corruption. DCI, we had a case, I think you may have seen it in the papers, where the DCI came in as a service provider was taken up by DCI that they had mishandled funds. So be careful, we've got all these agencies starting to be interested in our industry. CRPN is Complaints Referral Partnership. We partner with other institutions like the judiciary and Kenya Human Rights and a few others. We have the Joint Financial Sector Regulator, CAC. We have a forum there and an African Pensions Forum. Policy advice to the government is one of our mandates, and we advise the government on how to improve on the law so that conflict management can be better done. My last slide on our way forward. What should we do more? Let's continue to emphasize on member education and outreach, both ourselves and you, as service providers and the trustees. Call us in when you have your sessions. We are always happy to send in somebody to give the RBA perspective like you've done this morning. CAJ has required that this financial year we explore alternative dispute resolution. So you'll be seeing a policy coming out from the regulator on that. And also the CAJ requires us to do trustee sensitization. They'll be tracking whether we are doing it. Then training of those service providers, I've mentioned that. ICT systems, we already have 2 portals, a complaints portal and a whistleblower portal on the website, and members are able to report their complaints. But we are also improving on that. The RBSS is our risk-based supervision system. And again, we interact with the industry, especially the service providers on that platform. Guidelines, I've talked about those. And of course, continued research and surveys. And here, I think earlier I may not have mentioned academia. Strathmore, we are very happy with the work you're doing, and we also collaborate with other universities on research by our research department, and of course, stakeholder research like the one done by Enwealth this morning. I believe that is it from me, but I'll be ready to answer any questions that come up. Asanteni sana. I tend to talk very fast, but I hope you heard me and the material will be availed to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Anne. It's really a pleasure being with you and learning from you. And it's so good to see all the work you're doing at the authority to just ensure that conflicts are sorted, members are well educated, and all stakeholders are supported. As you take your glass of tea of water, I want to invite your ex-colleague, Mr. Mwangangi, to just answer a question that I've seen asked in 2 different perspectives on the chat and also on the Q&A. So one trustee says that they've opened a conflict of resolution book where they go before every BOT and write whether they have a conflict or not. But there's still lack of understanding of what really would constitute a conflict, because you wouldn't have a conflict with a meeting. So maybe you can expound more on that, Mr. Mwangangi. And then also, do trustees now need to be retrained on alternative dispute resolution mechanisms or approaches so that they're able to effectively handle conflict? This is from Mr. Francis Asuna of Kibabi University. So Mr. Mwangangi, if you may answer that, then we'll proceed from there. You're on mute, let me unmute you. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, thank you, comrades. It's my pleasure to participate in this occasion. The two questions come from a situation which we have today. One is understanding of the various matters that are caught in the interplay of interpreting a situation facing a retirement benefit scheme. So I'll pick the first question on conflict of interest. It is good to have a book on conflict of interest, but you need to find out in a retirement benefit scheme, what is it that would constitute a conflict of interest for you to declare? If you pick the first limb, it is that a retirement benefit scheme is a place for conflict of interest. It is so because you have trustees who are nominated by the sponsor. You have trustees who are nominated by the members. The true basis of trustees are also members of that retirement benefit scheme, and they are employees of the same employer. So then that leads you, Bansi, to find out what would constitute a conflict of interest that you need to declare. The law does not prevent a conflict of interest. The law requires management of a conflict of interest. A conflict appears only if the factors you are faced with, they would render you unable to make a decision because, number one, you have a personal interest in that matter. Or two, you have an interest of another person who you would like to further in that particular issue. The example is a meeting of the board of trustees. When trustees are meeting, they are supposed to discuss two matters, and always a matter may affect the pension industry generally, and another matter may affect the pension scheme itself. So then a trustee is supposed to go to the meeting and they say, this matter which affects the industry, for example, I have a personal interest in it. What is the nature of the personal interest? That would prevent you from discussing the agenda in the board, or can be seen to prevent you from making a decision. It is the same question again. The matter may affect the pension scheme itself. What is the matter that can make me be unable to fairly discuss the matter? The example, Bansi, is where you have the managing director of an organization as a board member of the trustees, and the trustees have in agenda a discussion on unremitted contributions. That you can even see without legal training that there is a problem, because trustees will be engaged in discussing the sponsor in his presence. The sponsor may not have a response which would fairly be seen to be at the middle. He may look at the same people who are discussing as his employees. Then he reacts in a manner which epitomizes undue influence. That certainly would be a conflict which someone should be able to disclose. How is the disclosure then made? The secretary of the scheme must give to the board of trustees an agenda in advance. The agenda must contain an explanation where it is necessary. A little explanation, not full-time explanation. Then that makes the trustees know what is coming to be discussed in that agenda. Then the trustees can declare their conflicts. The next question is whether, because of the desire for conflict resolution, it may require training of trustees. Ladies and gentlemen, you can take this one for free. The most terrifying thing, Bansi, you can see on earth is when you engage in an action when you are ignorant. That's the most scaring thing you can find. The answer to that question is yes, for a number of reasons, which Anne has explained. And with your permission, I would like to show you what, for example, Retirement Benefits Authority has done as an entity to be prepared to deal with a conflict, either by way of managing the conflict or even removing the conflict. As a regulator, and incidentally, as I speak to you, I'm an employee of Retirement Benefits Authority. Only that it can be said I am retired. Yes, I have retired from public service, but I have not retired from my duty to Retirement Benefits Authority as my employer. And I am aware we have done the following. When we realized the complaints were increasing, we created a department for market conduct, deliberately, so that that department has a key to understand who our customer is. The beauty of it today is that Anne Mugo, who is present as a panelist, is the head of that department. And I will say Anne Mugo with pride, because she helped us to manage to set a structure without exerting undue influence on us. For me as an employee, I cannot tick from your first question that I have had a dispute which is employment related, particularly when I am assigned to work with Anne Mugo as a person. She did the following to address that particular issue, and I say she because she was the head, heading us to do it. We created a free tool to enable people to be able to reach Retirement Benefits Authority at will. She guided us to have an open door policy. An open door policy is where, Bansi, you can legitimately go to Retirement Benefits Authority, reach the reception. If this is my complaint, under Anne Mugo's department, you will be attended without the necessity of the cumbersome process of you do not have an appointment. We deliberately created more questions. Still under that leadership, we created a complaints department and assessed competence in that department. Competence in the sense that a number of complaints that would come to that department may have a legal leaning. We posted a lawyer into that department. The production of the lawyers will not hardly be the lawyers, because there are other lawyers employed who the lawyer can consult and reach a decision. And I dare you, as we speak today, it is very difficult for you now to ventilate a complaint against Retirement Benefits Authority and successfully file an appeal against it, where a decision has been reached from conduct market under that guide. Retirement Benefits Authority adopted deliberately again a means of conflict resolution, where though you have got your particular positions which you take as a complainant, the trustees may have their own particular position, or even the employer may have a particular position. we deliberately adopted a system of negotiating that situation so that it does not escalate. The desired goal, Bansi, is to mute or reduce costs in a retirement benefit scheme, where that negotiation may likely escalate into a courtroom. There are many more things that we did. We deliberately started issuing guidelines. These guidelines, they are worded and carefully. Number one, in plain English, which any one of us can read and understand. And we have made a provision. If you don't understand any sentence, word, or language in a guideline, we will still be available to discuss the interpretation and give you the meaning which you would be able to enforce. There is no guideline which is incapable of enforcement so far issued by the Retirement Benefits Authority. That I thought I should be able to explain because it had raised a question which had been asked. And those are factors which trustees should take into account and be able to attend trainings. Anna has pointed that TPDK is compulsory for trustees.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Mwangangi. And I know you're a very good trainer. I wish we had more time. We'd allow you to, give your insights to the trustees who've attended, but unfortunately we have to cut it off. And it's very good to also know that Ms. Anne Mogo is such a great boss. It's good to see the impact she's made at RBA. And we look forward to hearing a lot more. So because of time, if you'll please allow me, we request for another 5 minutes. We have a very short overview. We just want to let you know who we are. Maybe some of you attended the session and are still wondering who Enwealth is and what the next steps would be for you as a trustee or as a member of the pension scheme. So what next is there for you? We've had a few people say they don't have a conflict of interest policy. I think 70% from the survey we did. We'd be more than happy to engage with you. Opa, our legal colleague, was here and she shared at breadth around the legal issues around conflict. And we're more than happy to consult for you when it comes to board evaluation services, data audit, conflict resolution policy, and even BOT training. So if you want more information, feel free to email info@enwealth.co.ke and we'll send that to you. We also have a trust fund that might be great for you to consider for your members. Some of the causes of conflict is that after a member passes on, the relatives or the beneficiaries never get their money because it's squandered in the middle between it now gets to the beneficiary. And the trust fund is a great way for you to put money aside for the beneficiaries, especially if they're children, and to ensure that they get their basic needs sorted. So education, school fees, upkeep, medical, etc., with the money that you've saved in your pension scheme. Additionally, we've had extensive conversations around training, and we will be hosting a training to discuss this issue amongst others. We have our 3rd annual Trustees Forum taking place on 8th and 9th October 2020 at White Sands Hotel in Mombasa. Please do feel free to register for the same. I think last year Anne Mugo was our keynote speaker, and we hope to have you again. Of course, slots will be very limited because of COVID measures, so we will ensure that there's social distancing and that we all stay safe. So for more information on this, feel free to email us info@enwealth.co.ke and we'll send you the details. So finally, I just want to give you a very brief overview of who we are as Enwealth Financial Services. Our vision is that everyone we serve will have a lifetime of financial dignity and wellness. So we are looking to give you solutions from the point of birth to the time you leave the earth and leave something for your children. That's why we have the trust fund. And we do this through innovation and economic empowerment. At a glance, we've been in existence for close to 10 years now, and we have around 40 technical staff working with us within the Kenyan office. We have a Mauritius office and also the Uganda office. In the 3 countries, we're overseeing close to 700 million USD in assets. We have an indemnity of $1 million USD and over 50,000 members who we are serving on a day-to-day basis. With that, I want to take a minute to just thank all the team members who've made this conversation possible, doing the interviews, writing the report, analyzing the data, organizing today's forum, and also sending out invitations. So in no particular order, I'd want to first of all thank Peyon Makoha and Lydia Nangila, who are our team members at Enwealth. Those two ladies really worked on this report, and we are extremely grateful for you, to you for the great work you've done. I also want to thank Audrey Simatwa, Gloria Musau, Albana Smudoka, Gift Mbeja, Lilian Gitao, Simon Gotho, and Joy Kareko. Without all of you, this would not have been possible. And last but not least, I want to welcome Mr. Wafubwa, who can just give us the closing remarks. As we shared, this report will be available to you. We will send you on email, and it will also be on our website, and we'll also send a copy of the recording. Thank you, everyone.
Bansi, definitely this has been a very engaging session, a lot of learning together. But before I think we wrap it up, it's good to see Boniface. Maybe we allow each one of them just to give us closing remarks before we wrap it up. We could begin it off with the Boniface in less than a minute.
As we are waiting, as we're waiting for Mr. Wafubwa, we'll just kindly request if the panelists can do a quick round just to give closing remarks, and then Mr. Wafubwa will close.
Okay, that's fine.
We'll start with the ladies. And Mugo, please, if we could start with you.
You start with the ladies when there's a lot of work to be done. In closing, just to thank participants.
To unmute your mic.
Oh, it is unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
I think it was a delay, and I was told that even earlier. Closing, just to thank the participants, and also, of course, Enwealth and Strathmore. We really enjoy this kind of interaction. It gives us input into what we are doing and assures us that we are on the right track. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. May I ask Elizabeth Irongo, please, to also give her closing remarks.
All right, thank you very much. It's my great pleasure to have been part of the panelists. I think this was really, really insightful. Thank you, Enwealth, for making it happen. I think these are the conversations that need to happen. They're real, they're very intentional, and they will only grow this industry deeper. And I'm very proud of all the things that you're doing, and especially bringing in these live conversations to our trustees. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Elizabeth. If you could please reply on the chat. Arthur has a question for ICEA. Please check the chat and reply to that. And I would also like to ask Naomi Jelimo, who spoke about HR managers. Please, if you could just unmute your mic and give your closing remarks. Naomi, are you there? Okay. Ask Orpa. You gave us some legal advice today. If you could just unmute your mic and give us your closing remarks.
Thank you, Wangeshi. From me is to thank the participants for making time to attend this webinar, and to thank Enwealth and Strathmore for conducting the research. It has been an eye-opener, and I'm hoping we can all work together in trying and ensuring that we minimize the conflicts that we are all prone to in the industry. Thank you very much.
Excellent, Orpa. Thank you very much. I'd like to invite Naomi May Mwangi from Strathmore University to give her closing remarks. Please unmute your mic.
My closing remark is thank you for this partnership that we have with Enwealth and IHRM, and also the respondents to the survey and the questionnaires that we send out. Without you, we wouldn't have done it, because in any research project without the respondents, the people giving the information, it's not possible. I look forward to us working together. in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate the support of the university and the partnership. I would kindly ask Madam Anne Mugo if you could reply to James Wanzala. He has a question for you. He's a journalist from the Standard newspaper. On the chat bar, you will see he's got a question there. Kindly respond to that. Allow me to invite Mr. George Oyuga, please, to give his closing remarks, and then we'll go to Mr. Boniface Mwangangi.
Thank you, Wangeshi. I also echo my gratitude to all the partners who made this come through, and staff members as well, together with the regulator. We thank you for your support. Enwealth conversations are real conversations. As you've seen, the track is that we always start with what are the people saying. Then we come and convey that to you, and therefore then keep participating at whatever level to enable us continue to grow and respond to the issues that will enable the industry to develop. We are always within reach, and we want to keep this going. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Oyuga. We appreciate what you're doing, and an open door to Enwealth to support you and give you training and give you advice as well. Mr. Boniface Mwangangi, if you could unmute your mic to give us our closing remarks.
Where is the unmute? Bansi, can you unmute me?
You're already unmuted.
You already.
Thank you.
You're already unmuted.
This conversation is a pleasure to me, and I'm proud to participate in it because matters discussed are not foreign to me. With a hindsight, at a future date when we have to discuss this, which are picked from the panelists, are the following. We need to check whether the arbitration clause, which is written in the trust deed and rules, binds both members, trustees, and maybe it binds service providers. That is a source of our conflict, which we may wish to look at. We will need to look at whether the meetings of the board of trustees, when being chaired by a chairman, can be challenged and in which circumstances. That is a source of our conflict. We need to check under communication, for example, what does a member statement mean when it is issued to a member? We need to check more on a matter Naomi touched on in employment, whether a retirement benefit is a right or it is a privilege in employment. These are sources of this Elizabeth Irungu touched the best that I have ever had recently, the relationship between trustees and the fund manager. We need to check at a future date. When they are acting under contract, the matter would mutate to a fiduciary duty. How do we balance these two to ensure that conflicts do not occur? I have had a statement before from fund managers, this is general, it's not for Irungu, where they say that the agreement they have with the trustees is discretionary. Probably we may wish to look at that because it is a source of a conflict, where, for example, fund managers believe or they have acted as though trustees have no role in making a decision on investments. They just simply pick an agreement, go and they do investments. And with that, I thank you so much for the choice of me to have been present at your conversation as a resource person. May God bless you all.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mwangangi, for your wealth of experience and knowledge. Thank you for sharing that. I'd like now to hand it over to Mr. Simon Wafugwa to give us the closing remarks. Thank you for hosting us. We are grateful for that and for sharing knowledge with the industry. Karibu sana, Mr. Wafugwa.
Thank you so much. Truly, this has been thought-provoking, transformative, quite engaging, courtesy of all your contributions, right from the participants, the panelists, and we are quite grateful for your contributions and engagement. The retirement benefit sector is a trust-based sector, and trust is a huge obligation, and also responsibility. To sustainably achieve that, it takes collective responsibility from all the stakeholders involved. And that's right from the retirement benefit sector regulator, the service providers, the members, and also even the sponsors of retirement benefit scheme. We are very privileged to continually spearhead this discussion in the sector, of course, together with the various stakeholders with their support, including the Retirement Benefits Authority, in terms of making these conversations again keep going for the mutual value creation of the sector. In closure, I also want to say that trust being enhanced in the sector will make extremely the cost of resolution of disputes very low. And this is a huge opportunity that we have at the moment. With the growth of the industry in terms of membership and assets, there's potentially a huge likelihood of more conflicts arising. And when we prepare a lot more from an infrastructural perspective, policy-wise, legislative-wise, knowledge capital perspective, we will position ourselves as stakeholders to mitigate these risks in the industry. We know we are in the right track. Enwealth stands in the forefront of charting these conversations for the mutual value creation of the sector. All the best for the industry, and we are open to engage further should there be need and to assist our clients and any other stakeholder in these conversations. Thank you so much. Back to you, Wangeshi.
All right, thank you very much. We've come to the end of our webinar. We want to thank you again for staying with us right through to the very end. As Bansi had mentioned, we will be sending the PowerPoint presentation and the recording via email. So please look out for that in case you need to read through it. If you are a journalist, please post your email address and we will send you a press release after this session. This is Wangeshi Kanyaki. I have been your moderator, co-moderator with Bansi, and it's been a great delight just to hear what you all have to offer. We are very grateful. I have learned so much as well, and I want to wish your industry all the best. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you. Keep safe and stay safe. Thank you, everyone.